Hi, I'm Brittney Saunders and welcome to Big Business, the place where business is far from boring, and today I'm recording on Gadigal land. Now, I somehow managed to build an empire from the garage underneath my house, and I'm here on Big Business to share it all with you, from the wins, the huge mistakes, the challenging times and funny moments in between. So whether you're in business already, you're wanting to start one, or you're not even in business at all and you're just looking for some inspiration, or you just want to hear a good story or the tea, this is the podcast for you. Coming up in today's episode, I'm going to be taking you through our hiring process at FAYT, which I touched on in a previous bonus episode, and I'm also going to be talking about the red flags to look out for when it comes to hiring staff. And as you know, time is money, so let's get down to business. Let's get down to business. Now, I've got a lot to say in this episode, and I hope I don't go all over the place. But what exactly do I mean when I say red flags when it comes to hiring? I feel like that's a really negative way to put it, like red flags to look out for. I don't mean that in a mean way, but to simply put it, these are warning signs or indicators that an applicant might not be the right fit for your business. They can appear at various stages of the hiring process, from reviewing resumes and applications to conducting interviews and checking references. Little red flags can pop up at any stage, and what's scary is, and I've said this already in a previous episode, is people's red flags or employees' red flags can pop up when they're already employed, and that's when it gets really bloody messy. I now have almost 70 employees, or I think it could even be more. It is going up and up as each day goes past, which is crazy because it was not that long ago that I remember saying, oh my God, I've got 20 staff, and now it's 70. And I'm like, oh my God, imagine when it's 100. But with how many staff that I now have, it's safe to say that I have a bit of experience when it comes to hiring. And trust me when I say that I have had my fair share of red flags pop up over the years that I have definitely brushed aside, and I've had them bite me in the bum later down the track. Now, identifying these red flags in little quotation marks, is crucial because making a bad hire can be incredibly costly, not just in terms of money, but also time, morale, and productivity. Think about it. Every hour that you spend training someone who isn't a good fit is an hour that you could be spending growing your business or supporting your existing team. I cannot stress to you enough, the people that you hire for your business will either make your business or completely break it. We've all heard the saying, hire slow and fire fast, and there's a good reason that that quote exists. Hiring someone, even as casual as it can seem, especially in those early days of business, it can just seem like, yeah, whatever, like she can come work for me. It is such a crucial decision and a delicate part of your business journey. The one thing I advise to all of you when it comes to hiring is to take your bloody time with it. I touched on this already in a previous episode, but let me start by taking you through what the typical hiring process at FAYT looks like and where any red flags would pop up throughout our process and what some of those red flags can look like. Now, in my early days of FAYT, the hiring process was super simple. We would put our job ads up on Seek. That's the only place that we have ever put our job ads up, and that's the website that we continue to use. Shout out to Seek, the amount of money that I've spent with them over the years. I should be on some sort of VIP tier for the amount of ads that we run. But we would put up our ads. We would then shortlist the suitable applicants, and then we would invite them into our office for a face-to-face interview. That was our interview process. And this is a pretty standard way of interviewing and hiring, but over time I found that we wasted a lot of time by jumping straight into the face-to-face interview, as we'd be meeting with candidates who were simply not the right fit at all. You would just get people coming in who just clearly weren't the right fit for the role, or they had applied with no idea of what the role was that they'd applied for, and it costs you a lot of time and money and energy and effort if you're just jumping straight into a face-to-face interview straight up, because, you know, you'll spend all your time scheduling them in, you'll get it booked in, you've got people involved in the interview, they're coming in, and then you've kind of got to conduct the interview even if they're an absolute no straight off the bat. Even though if you're like, yeah, this person isn't the right fit, you then still got to do the interview. So then, you know, you're spending 15 minutes like explaining the company and everything to them, even though they're just a straight up not suitable. So when COVID came about, That's when we obviously all really saw the world of video calls boom. And it was then that we implemented a video call into our interviewing process. So we'd put up our Seek ad, we'd shortlist the applicants, then we'd lock in a Zoom or Google Meeting call as the first part of our interview process. We would chat to them. We'd then move on to the next round, which was face-to-face. And by doing this, it felt a little more streamlined as we weren't wasting time with just face-to-face interviews. Things did feel a little more streamlined by having these two elements of our interviews, the video calls and then a face-to-face, but we still felt like there was something missing. So then we implemented a third part, which actually is the first step of our interviews. And this part of our interview process has been an absolute game changer for us as a business, and that is a written element. I did talk about this in a previous episode, and my producer Xander said, I hate written interviews, I hate them. But implementing a questionnaire as the first step of our interview process has been an absolute game changer for us, and I'd highly recommend it to anyone. Xander's there going, don't do it. So in a nutshell, this is what our hiring process now looks like. We put up our ads on Seek. We go through the applicants and shortlist candidates that we think might be suitable. Those shortlisted candidates are then entered into our written segment. I don't know what to call it, a segment, which I'll explain to you in detail shortly of what that looks like, because I don't want you all thinking I'm getting people to write essays. Successful applicants from our written segment are then offered the video interview, and then those that are successful in that move on to a face-to-face interview. So there is 3 parts. If it's necessary, we then might do a fourth. If we feel like there needs to be one more conversation, we could offer them the job on the spot, or depending on the type of role that they're applying for, there might be a little bit of a physical element added as well, like a trial, especially if they're coming to work in our store. We want to see what they're like with the customers. They have to do a physical exam, like lifting weights, climbing up ropes. But that's a little look at the overview of our hiring process. So let's take it back to round 1, the written element of our interviews. Why did we implement this? What exactly do they have to write? And why has it been an absolute game changer for our business? Now, like I said before, when you hear written, I don't want you to think that we're getting people to write us an essay. In fact, it's quite simple. We send potential applicants a few basic questions about them or about the role that they're applying for. They can be as simple as, what made you want to apply for a role with FAYT? Or what 3 words would your friends use to describe you? Another one that we like to do, it's more of a personality one, is tell us an interesting fact or a fun and interesting story about yourself. We also might throw in a question about the role that they're applying for, like why are you interested in this role? So what are some red flags or warning signs that we look out for in this first round? A big one for us is we're looking at people's writing skills. Why did you say that? What? Xander's got something to say. Xander's got something to say. He's scrunching up his face.
I just think that's so savage.
Why, to be looking at their writing skills?
Yeah, but in such a good way.
Yeah.
Like, it's something I've actually never thought about because, and like when I apply for interviews, I mean, I know my writing skills are great, but like I've actually never thought of that. That's why employers probably do that.
Yeah, so...
cut the dumb ones out. Like, that's what it feels like.
But this is the thing. So that's the first thing that we're looking for is how they can write, because a lot of our jobs, even though we're online and whatever, a lot of our jobs have to do a lot of, like we do writing, especially if they're coming to join our customer service team where we are emailing customers every single day. If they're joining our social media team and they're going to be writing captions, we put these questions to our applicants, and if they're writing back one huge paragraph with no full stops and all lowercase letters, how are they ever going to send an email to one of our customers?
I'd see that and be like, Gen Z.
So that's one of the first things that we're looking out for is, as weird as it is, and it feels like we're going back to school, is we're seeing, can people use proper punctuation, grammar? How are they writing their sentences? And you'll be surprised at how many people do send us like 2 paragraphs worth in their answer, but it's all one massive sentence with like no full stops, no commas. And this is just basic stuff that we learnt in primary school. But that in itself helps us a lot, especially if they are joining our customer service team where we are sending like 100 emails every single day. We need someone that is going to be able to write emails, because we're not going to teach people like the correct way to write an email or use punctuation or whatever. What else do we look out for in these written answers? And mind you, they are the most simple questions. But what we look for as well is how much effort they put into their answer. So an example of this is if we have asked them the question, what made you apply for a role with FAYT? If they just write back, I just wanted a new job, or it seems fun, or, something really simple like one sentence, compared to an applicant that might write, I have applied for a role with FAYT because X, Y, Z, and I think I would be a great fit because, we're going to notice those applicants that have gone the extra mile with their answer because they're going to stand out amongst the ones that just have written one sentence. So it's not so much about the answers to the questions, it's the way they're writing and just the effort that they're putting into it. Because I know for me, if someone's not going to put in an effort to answer some really basic questions, how are they going to put in an effort in their role? Especially for us, we're this young brand and we're all super passionate. We're looking for passionate people to join our team. And if they're just going to write I just saw it and thought I would apply, then what are they going to be like towards their role? We want to find people that are passionate about the positions that we have advertised. By narrowing down the pool early, you ensure that only the most promising candidates advance to the next stage, making the video call round more productive and focused. And I thought I'd add in here, it almost feels weird to be talking about this when I'm talking about humans, when using terms like narrowing down the pool and sifting through people. It almost feels a bit wrong. But in business, you want to be obviously a decent human and be open to giving everyone a chance. But at the same time, you're running a business and you have a role to fill. And I think that's something that you need to keep in mind throughout the entire hiring process is you want to be like, let's give them a chance and let's see, even though they had really poor grammar, let's give them a chance. But in business, as much as I wish I could be that way, you can't, because time is money, obviously. So on to the video interviews. Video interviews obviously give us the chance as employers to virtually meet our applicants and get a better feel for who they are as a person. So what are some of the things that we look out for in this part of the process? With video interviews, the first thing obviously that our attention goes to is the candidate's environment and how they've presented themselves. Even though we're inviting applicants to do an interview from the comfort of their own home, if the camera pops up and they're sitting there in their Audi with KFC on their bed in the background and their room's a bit of a mess, that's definitely going to raise a flag to any interviewer. Would you agree, Xander?
I would agree, and that's something that I'm extremely conscious of when I go into a video interview is what is my background showing?
Yes.
Is it professional? Is it clean? Is it showing that I'm coming into this interview presented well? That's one of the biggest things that I make sure that I kind of cover when I'm going into an interview process.
And my advice to all of you out there, to anyone, if you are applying for a new role, I would say even if you feel like you don't need to look presentable because maybe it's just a really casual workplace or whatever, I'd always make the effort to just look presentable. And I'm not saying you need to have an amazing background and a suit on or whatever, but I think it definitely pays to always present yourself in a professional way.
Yeah.
Because it says a lot about you, and you'd be surprised how many people do just jump on interviews and they're basically in their dressing gown and pajamas.
I've got a funny story. Before I started my role here as a producer with Nova, I had a blonde mullet. And
Nice.
I shaved it off before the interview. And I remember telling my dad that I had the interview, and he goes, did you have the interview with your mullet or without the mullet? And I said, without. He goes, thank God, you'll get the job.
So yeah, I know, again, this is where the human element of that comes in. Obviously, we don't want to judge people by their looks, but I think that you've got to draw that line, and we do want people that are going to show up and present themselves in just a neat kind of way, because it goes a mile to dress nicely. And I know some people can often get confused of what do I wear to an interview, when they don't know exactly if there's a dress code or whatever. But for me personally, I would always say just always present yourself nicely. Me, in any occasion, I'd rather look too much the part than not the part at all. Another key area that we're obviously watching out for when on these video interviews is their communication skills. Effective communication is crucial no matter the role that they're applying for. And it's during this interview process that we're also analysing whether this applicant would be a good culture fit. At FAYT, especially for our head office positions, as much as we are hiring applicants that are equipped and skilled and ready to do the role, we are thinking about their personality and if they are going to be a good culture fit for the team. A red flag when it comes to communication skills for me would be if someone is coming across a little too strong. And again, I feel mean for saying that, but you would be surprised. And I'm all for powerful women, and like being confident. But a lot of times in interviews, people can come across really strong. Like, maybe they're nervous or whatever, but some people can come across really strong. And then it gets our brains thinking, if this person's coming into our office, are they going to be that same way to everyone? And is it going to throw the culture and the balance off? Like, are they going to be bossing people around, or are they going to have a hard time having someone give them directions or whatever? So they're just all these little things that we're always looking out for in interviews. It's important in interviews to always be taking note of all the really obvious things, like are they friendly? Do they have the skills to fill the role they're applying for? Does their job history align with the role, and all the obvious things? But it's also important to take note of the smaller things, just these little tiny things. Examples could be, is the applicant continually cutting you off or talking over the top of you? Or have they badmouthed their current or past workplace a little too many times to the point where it seems strange? Or maybe they've told you information or a story about their personal life that feels a little bit off. When we're interviewing people, not only are we looking at the obvious things, we're also just picking up on tiny little things as well, or things that could be tiny little red flags if they've said something that's a little too personal or told you a story about their partner or their life. We just take note of absolutely everything.
I want to jump in with another perspective on this. Last year, I went through a bit of trouble with getting a new job. I left a previous workplace because I wasn't quite happy with the culture. I didn't find it very positive. And so coming into interviews, I had noticed in myself that I perhaps was coming on a little too strong because I was so, and I don't want to say desperate, but so anxious to land the job that you kind of find yourself doing everything you can to prove that you are the right person for the job. And sometimes you doing that, even though you could be that right person, I can understand why it can come across differently to the employer.
Yeah.
And I think some advice, if you've come from a workplace where you haven't had the best experience, never badmouth them, but you know,
can say it in a different way.
You can say it in a different way. You can say, you know what, I didn't quite enjoy the culture in that workplace, or I didn't align with the values of that workplace, and it kind of softens that negativity that came with it.
Yeah, and if you do get the role, eventually I'm sure you will then speak with your new workplace about your experiences that you had at the past one, but it can be a bit of a red flag if someone comes in and they're like, well, I worked here, they were bitches, they did this, they talk behind my back. Like, of course, we're going to take that person's word for it.
They very well may have been that way.
Yes, exactly. But us on the other side, we're like, oh, shit, like, obviously there's always two sides to every story, but we're always wary with that kind of stuff. It's like, of course, we want to believe this person if they've had a horrible experience at that company, but also that's not our business or our thing to worry about. And is this person speaking truthfully, or, you know, so yeah, that's great advice. And that would be my advice too, is you can say that you've had a bad experience in the past, but it is better to keep it light, especially for those first interview rounds, and just say, I was working here, but I didn't quite enjoy the culture. You can say little soft things like that. And then once you get the job with us, you can tell us all about them and we'll hear all the gossip about your past workplace. Another thing when it comes to hiring is, if there's one thing that interviewing and hiring people has taught me, it's the importance of trusting your gut. Above all the technical shit, trusting your gut is something that I think we all sleep on. Whilst data and structured evaluations are obviously essential, don't underestimate the power of your gut instinct. 9 times out of 10, your gut feeling is always right. Like, I think it always is in life, and the same goes when hiring people. An applicant could be ticking all of the boxes, even to the point where they feel like they're almost too good to be true, but maybe your gut is trying to tell you something. So what do you do in that instance where something just feels off? And I've experienced this myself. So what are some things you can do if you are having that gut feeling? One thing that you can do is reflect on past experiences. Think about previous hires and your initial feelings about them. What were the outcomes? This can help you understand your intuitions better. The next thing you can do is discuss it with your team. If you have a gut feeling about a candidate, talk it over with your hiring team. They might have noticed similar things or can provide different perspective. I'd say it's also really important when hiring anyone to have a second person sitting in on all of the interviews. It's great to have that alternative opinion, and that's what we do at FAYT. There's always two people in the interviews, and even if you don't want it to be intimidating, because I know, if you jump on an interview and there's two people on the other side of the screen, it can feel a little more intimidating. Have one person on the screen and someone just sitting on the other side of the computer, just listening. Like, they don't even have to see the person. It's just a second set of ears to give a different opinion. And what we found as well with that is it's so good having two people's opinions, because they'll both pick up on different things in different ways. I'll interview someone, not that I interview people these days, but in the past I'll be listening in on the interview and the other person that's conducting the interview with me will be like, well, I like this. And then I'll go, but she said this, and there's just two different opinions looking at the one situation. It's really beneficial. So if you have the opportunity to have that second person in there, always have that second person. If your gut is giving you a weird feeling, the other thing that you can do is just dig deeper. If something feels off, ask more questions. Dive deeper into areas that triggered that gut feeling just to see if your concerns are valid. And the last thing I'd suggest is take your time. Don't rush the decision-making process. Sometimes giving yourself a bit of time can help clarify your feelings and thoughts about a candidate. Sleep on it and see how you feel the next day. Let's get on to reference checks. My first question is, do you always need to do reference checks? First, I think you have to think about the role's responsibility level. For high-stake positions such as senior management or roles with significant financial responsibilities, reference checks are going to be pretty crucial. Reference checks provide an additional layer of assurance that the candidate is reliable and has a proven track record. For entry-level positions, while they're still beneficial, the necessity might not be as critical and you might weigh other aspects more heavily. For example, with us, if we're hiring a retail store casual, we're probably not going to go to the effort of then calling their references, because they might be younger and they've just had a couple of jobs so far. They've done the physical trial. We've seen them interact with our customers. There's no need to then call their references kind of thing. Whereas if you're hiring, I guess, for a more higher level, then maybe you do want to do some reference checks before making such a big commitment and have someone coming high up in your business. I feel like over the years, references have really changed. I remember when I was out in the workforce and I had my resume, I just had my references written there on my resume, but now it's changed and I can understand why. I'm all for you getting to the point where the employer needs to ask for them. I don't think there's any point in people having them on their resume for you to call at any given point. And also I always think of people that are in sticky situations when it comes to references. Maybe they've seen the job ad and they're like, oh my God, I really want to apply. So then they're going through the interview process while still employed. So of course they're not going to put their current manager on their resume. So it can be a bit of a sticky situation for a lot of applicants when it's I'm happy to give you my reference, but I don't really want to because I'm still working there and they don't know that I've applied. And what if I don't get the job? Then that's really awkward if they don't get the job. So it can be a bit of a tricky area for everyone involved. But if people don't want to give you references for whatever reason, that may suggest that they have something to hide or a lack of strong professional relationships. Give or take, it's a tricky one. One thing that I always think is how easily people could lie when it comes to their references. And I'm sure people do this. I think people would put people as their references, but maybe it's their auntie or their cousin or whatever. I think people would do that often. And we'll always give people the benefit of the doubt and think that they're being well and true. But one thing that I would do, if you are getting a gut feeling about an applicant, mind you, by the point where you're going to call a reference, you don't really have any more gut feelings about them. You're feeling pretty confident in them. But if for whatever reason you are calling references and you have a weird gut feeling or whatever, I'd go as far as asking the reference really specific questions that no one could lie about. Like, so what was your role? What's your role in the company? And like, I'd ask the reference person questions if for any reason that I was suspicious. But for us, if we're getting to the stage where we're calling someone's references, we're pretty keen on this person. Like, we want to give them the job kind of thing. Another thing to also watch out for is overly positive references. It might seem counterintuitive, but references that are excessively glowing without any mention of any areas for improvement, it can be a bit suspicious. Because at the end of the day, no one is perfect, and a balanced reference usually includes both strengths and areas where the candidate can grow. If a reference sounds more like a promotional pitch than an honest evaluation, it's worth considering why that may be. I myself have dealt with this personally. An applicant that was applying for a management role with us seemed almost so amazing that it was too good to be true. And we were just having this gut feeling, myself and two of our managers. We were like, oh my God, we love this applicant, but this all seems too good to be true. Like, she seems way too overqualified and amazing. And like, she knocked us out of the park with her interview. Like, we had that gut feeling. And so we called two of her references, and the two references also absolutely knocked our socks off. It was this gut feeling that we all had. But we went ahead with offering the applicant the position. And a couple of weeks later, it absolutely bit us in the butt, and we were completely ghosted when the person was meant to be starting their position. I'm talking ghosted, like not showing up, not answering calls. I have no bad feelings or whatever, but it was the most confusing thing that we've ever experienced. Because like, what do you do? And it's like, we should have trusted our gut when we were saying this applicant is too good to be true. Like, it was so amazing that it almost seemed like a lie. And then we were just ghosted. And what do you do when you've hired someone, given them the job, done the interview, done a bit of training, this, that, and the other, and they just ghost you? We called the emergency contact, and that was also weird. Like, it's a weird thing to experience, but that right there is an example of you need to trust your gut when things don't seem right, because your gut is always right. To sum it up with reference checks, whilst they're not always crucial, they can be a goldmine of information if conducted correctly. When calling references, make sure you're thorough, ask probing questions, and look out for any red flags to ensure you get an accurate picture of the candidate. References are your chance to verify the information provided during the interview process and to uncover any potential issues that weren't immediately apparent. So let's wrap up with some actionable tips to help you refine your hiring strategy and ensure that you're bringing the best people onto your team. First and foremost, like all things in business, it begins with you. Create a structured interview process. Consistency is key when evaluating candidates. Develop a standard set of questions and criteria for each stage of the interview process, from the initial application to the final interview. This not only helps you compare candidates more effectively, but it also ensures fairness and reduces unconscious bias. When I started FAYT, we had no structure in anything we did. I know I've said this a billion times, and over the years, we've really built those structures. So even when it comes to things like your interviews, have structures in place. Have the same questions that you are asking every single person for every single interview. It makes everything fair, and it also makes it easier for you as well, because you know what each interview is going to essentially look like. Next, incorporate multiple perspectives. Whenever possible, involve those other team members in the interview process. Having different viewpoints can help you catch potential red flags that you might miss on your own. While it's important to trust your gut and the impressions you form during interviews, always back these feelings up with concrete evidence by doing reference checks, even skills tests, like if there's a physical element, obviously not lifting weights, but getting them involved in your business for a trial shift can always be a good option. And finally, don't rush the process. Hiring the right person takes time, and it's worth investing that time to avoid costly mistakes down the road. If you're unsure about a candidate, it's better to take a little longer to make the right decision than to hire hastily and regret it later on. Trust me, been there, done that. And that's it. Thanks for listening, my friends. I hope you've all gotten a thing or two out of today's episode. I'm going to leave you with my tip of the week, and that is verify that references are real. I think there could be people out there who are shady and getting their auntie to pretend that they're their manager. If you are ever doing reference checks, even though you're at a good point by that point and you know you want to give the applicant the job, ask the person on the other end of the phone just a few questions to verify that they are who they say they are. Anyway, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any of my future episodes. I upload a main episode every Monday and my bonus episodes on Wednesdays. And if you haven't rated me 5 stars yet, I would really appreciate it. Until next time, make sure you chase after those dreams as if they owe you money.